believe the hype. Week 3 for us, but this is actually week 4 for the NFL season. Again, this is the good, the bad, and definitely the ugly of fantasy sports. I'm Maurice.
And I'm Marcus.
All right, so let's get right into it, man. Another week in the books for the NFL. Who lived up to the hype for you last week, Marcus?
I'd have to say, starting with the Thursday night game, it was Sammy Watkins, Ty Gurley once again. I mean, it was a high scoring. It was 41-39. The Rams won. But even on the San Francisco side, Carlos Hyde, it was an injury scare at first, and he came back in the game and rushed for 2 scores. And Pierre Garçon, 7 catches for close to 150 yards. Chris Thompson killed the Raiders single-handedly. PPR nightmare out the backfield. Tom Brady, as usual, 4 touchdowns, including the game winner to Brandon Cooks. And believe it or not, the Vikings, I honestly didn't expect the Vikings to put up numbers like they did, despite Tampa Bay missing 3 defensive starters because it was Case Keenum. So that means that you should have started Case Keenum. And he went off. Stephon Diggs went off. Dalvin Cook had a solid game. I feel like a genius on my Tennessee pick from last week. It didn't start off. It initially didn't start off so good, but then they hit the offensive stride. Rashard Matthews had a long touchdown catch. DeMarco Murray had a long touchdown. So if you started them, they were probably low owned because of the Seahawks defense, but they paid off for you. Hopefully they did. So those are just some of the guys that lived up to the hype.
Yeah. All right, and I agree with you with those guys. I want to add a few. Again, it's just becoming like clockwork. Kareem Hunt,
of course,
another big performance. He continues to haunt me because I didn't draft him, but again, he's in that offense. He's definitely set up to have a big year. But the team that I want to mention, the Cincinnati Bengals. We knew that with the firing of the OC, there was going to be a different look. We were hoping that it was going to be a better look, but we weren't sure. But I would say I was impressed. Last week I mentioned that I was riding with Andy Dalton in my for DFS, and I pretty much played him in every league. Now he didn't blow the numbers away, but
it was solid.
Right. And they took Green Bay to overtime. So,
right.
And you got to see Mixon. You got to see Mixon 21 touches. So, again, that's what I think the offense will look like going forward. Mm-hmm. So, I was impressed. And one more, can't forget Odell Beckham. He came back strong. I mean, it was in the cards for him to do well. You have a banged-up secondary that he was going against, and he started off slow, and the offense started off slow, but that fourth quarter,
right, as usual,
man. That fourth quarter alone, it saved a lot of fantasy teams. So,
right,
that's what we like that lived up to the hype. But as far as what did not live up to the hype, I'm going to go ahead and start this off, and I'm going to say, last Sunday, I got up at 8:00 a.m. Now I get up pretty early on Sunday because I like to do my research, but it's usually about 9ish, 9 o'clock. But I got up extra early because we had a game in London, Ravens and the Jags, and I just knew that Buck Allen, that whole defense was going to ball out, and they were going to win the game. Again, Jacksonville has a good defense, but the Jacksonville defense is not that good. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things to say, okay, did I get beat or did I beat myself?
Uh-huh.
The Ravens clearly beat themselves. I mean, Joe Flacco passed for 28 yards and 2 interceptions. So that was definitely his worst performance. I mean, going back to Del State, Delaware, that has to be the worst performance he's probably ever put up in his career. So I was very disappointed with that. the Ravens game. What about you?
Well, to me, it was just a weird weekend of football. It was a weird Sunday of football. And I mean, you could point it to all the backstories. I'm not really going to go into it. But it just started off weird with the Ravens, and it ended horribly with the Raiders. So I'm going to lead off with Oakland. And I didn't think that Josh Norman would completely shut down Amari and or Crabtree. But I mean, one catch, 6 yards, one catch, 13 or 14 yards. And that was the combined effort of Amari and Crabtree. And it just seemed like the Raiders just couldn't get anything started. And I was just extremely disappointed in them. The Steelers, I was a bit disappointed in the offense, but it's not really a surprise when you look at Roethlisberger's road stats. His road stats aren't really that good, and it's beginning to extremely show now that Le'Veon isn't running the ball as effective as he has in the past. You know, he could kind of mask the fact that, you know, Roethlisberger's on his numbers on the road are a little bit iffy. You know, you just give him the ball out the backfield and let Le'Veon go, or you just, you know, give it to him on a swing, you know, line him up in the slot, give him a screen or something like that, you know. So, I mean, they disappointed me too. You know, a high-powered offense such as theirs, you know, was struggling against the Bears, you know. Carolina, to me, I went with Cam in most of my lineups because I just was like, he's got to break out of this funk eventually. I know his shoulder still isn't 100%, but it's the Saints. I mean, the Saints have been, before Carolina, the Saints were making every offense look good with their horrible defense. So they struggled mightily against New Orleans defense. And I'd have to say Miami. I know, considering what Derek Carr did against that Jets defense, and not comparing Derek Carr to Jay Cutler, but I mean, you have weapons. You have Ajayi, even though he was banged up. You still have Ajayi. You have Jarvis Landry. You have Devontae Parker. You have Kenny Stills. And you didn't score a touchdown until the last play of the game. So those were just major disappointments to me. I mean, those teams just failed to live up to the hype, personally.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that. Definitely agree with you on that. So, you know, as we look forward to week 4, just looking at, you know, every week there are injuries, there are players to potentially pick up. Who are you targeting this week?
As I look at the waiver wires for week 4, there's still a couple nice pieces out there to add to your team. And I'm going to go with Duke Johnson. I know he's listed as questionable this week, but he reminds me of what Hugh Jackson was able to do for Giovanni Bernard in Cincinnati. You know, he's lining up in the backfield, but he's getting the ball out of the backfield in different situations, whether it be, you know, a swing pass, you know, maybe a halfback toss every once in a while, because Isaiah Crowell is still controlling the touches out of the backfield. But they're getting creative with Duke Johnson, lining him up in the slot, you know, giving him sweeps, giving him, you know, just opportunities to work in space. And when you get Duke Johnson in space, as we've seen against Indy, you know, he was able to execute and get a touchdown, you know. I will also say Deshaun Watson, you know, to be able to go up there to Foxborough and hold your own against Tom, you know, it was a bit ugly, you know, stat-wise for him. But, you know, the fact that he can run for you too is an added bonus in your fantasy leagues. Yeah, he can throw the ball, but he can also run and get you points that way too. So it's kind of like having, you know, a quarterback / running back, not necessarily a full-time running back, but when things break down, he can get you yards. Also, Sterling Shepard from the Giants. I know this was his first breakout game of the season. He had 7 for, I guess, like 130, I believe, 140 and a touchdown. To me, the Giants offense has nowhere to go but up. So Why not? You know, it's gonna get to a point where OBJ will get, you know, the coverage that he deserves, and it'll be tight, and it'll be doubled, and it may be bracketed, and it should leave possibilities for a Brandon Marshall or a Sterling Shepard or even an Evan Ingram, you know, to tight in there to, you know, get his stats up, you know. So those are some of the guys, and maybe, you know, if you're just desperate for a wide out, Josh Doctson from the Redskins. I mean, he embarrassed that corner. I mean, Randy Moss would have been proud of that touchdown.
Right.
But it's that play he made is something that they've seen in practice over and over and over. It just has to translate to the game. And if he can get out there in a game situation with a Terrell Pryor commanding, you know, decent attention. I mean, he hasn't really done anything yet, but you still have to respect him out there as a wideout. And now Chris Thompson emerging out of the backfield as somebody that you have to really pay attention to. You may have to put, you know, a spy on him, whether it be a linebacker or whether, you know, the fact that somebody's coming out of the backfield with that explosiveness as a Chris Thompson, it does command the secondary's attention. It commands the defense attention. So that leaves somebody out there on the island pretty much as a corner against a Doctson, against a Pryor, maybe even now Vernon Davis, depending on how long Jordan Reed's out. So I would say Vernon Davis as well as Josh Doctson, as well as a Chris Thompson, if he hasn't already been snatched up.
That's good stuff. Good stuff right there, cuz. I'm going to add two names.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you are, and again, this time of year, early, sometimes you're still scrambling for a decent running back. And, you know, in my case, I know I could probably use another one at least to add some depth to my team. So if Chris Carlson is out there, which he might not be at this point, but another name is Bilal Powell. Going into this offseason, I was smitten over Bilal Powell. The last, the end of last year, he was one of the top fantasy running backs in the PPR standard format, you know, without Matt Forte in that offense. And I kind of figured that they were going to try to showcase him more, but then they came out with, you know, Forte and Powell, and then they threw in the third guy into the mix. And so I actually, I think I had Bilal Powell in maybe 3 of my leagues, and once I saw that they were running a three-headed monster, I dropped them in 2 of them. Now, fast forward to this week, there's a good chance that Matt Forte won't be playing with turf toe, and the last time I checked, the Jets offense didn't get any better. So, you know, he's a perfect target for Josh McCown. Actually, he's a perfect target for any of the quarterbacks that get in the game, because we know Josh McCown probably will be getting hurt in the next week or two, because that's just how long he usually plays. So you want to have that safety blanket. And between him and Austin Seferian Jenkins, I feel like the receivers that are close, the players that are close to the line of scrimmage will be that quarterback's best friend. I mean, yeah, it's nice to get the ball deep to Robbie Anderson. It's nice to get the ball deep to Jermaine Kearse. But if you've got a weak offensive line and you're seeing 7-man fronts, those 2 guys are going to be your best weapon. So I mentioned Austin Seferian Jenkins too. Another guy that I like is a low radar. If you don't have a backup tight end and you have an extra roster spot, as the season goes along, you're going to see more of him being implemented into the offense. So he might not be a bad pickup or at least put him on your waiver watch if you're not ready to pick him up yet. All right, so now what we've all been waiting for, week 4. So, you know, last week I said my guy was Andy Dalton. This week I'm taking the even bigger risk, and I'm going with Tyrod Taylor. You know, now I know how you feel about Tyrod Taylor. I know you use him many lines, but I think this is a really good week for Tyrod Taylor going against the Atlanta Falcons. So again, my strategy doesn't change. I like to pick a quarterback that is going to be going against a high-powered offense and is going to be going against a gunslinging quarterback where you're going to have to kind of play like a ping pong matchup. Tyrod Taylor fits that bill because, one, he can, he's an efficient passer. So he's not going to give you a 300 or 400 yard game, but at the same time, he can give you 300 all-purpose yards, and that's what I'm looking at going against Atlanta. Added with the fact that Vic Beasley, last year's NFL sack leader, is out. That means he doesn't really have any pressure on the edge to worry about. So he's still getting used to his weapons, and I think that he didn't have that off season. With Sammy Watkins being traded, Jordan Matthews coming in, and Jordan Matthews got hurt the first day of practice. So I think really these first couple of weeks of the season is helping getting that offense acclimated. Zay Jones, I'm going to also pair Charles Clay. Thinking about maybe LaShawn McCoy, but definitely Charles Clay in that game with Tyrod Taylor. And again, I'm looking at 300 all-purpose yards, and I'm going to say 3 touchdowns against the Atlanta Falcons this week.
Okay. I know you went with Andy Dalton last week, and it paid off. It wasn't a over-the-top offensive explosion, but it was solid enough and in a nice bounce-back spot against a Packers defense that is beatable. I think he has a better matchup this week as well against the Browns. I'm not sure of his career history against the Browns, but it's something worth looking at considering they let Jacoby Brissett go off for 2 rushing touchdowns and a passing touchdown. So I like Andy Dalton against the Browns. I like AJ Green against the Browns. I like Mixon against the Browns.
Yeah.
And also, I know it may be probably a bit off the radar because of the 4 or 5 star time. I know, especially in the FanDuel leagues or the DraftKings leagues as well. I noticed a lot of the times the players like to go for the 1 o'clock starts and not necessarily concern themselves with the 4 o'clock starts. But in this particular instance, I'm going to go with Carson Wentz against the Chargers. Their coach, Doug Peterson, was a long-time OC with the Chiefs, so he knows the Chargers pretty well. The Chargers still missing their top corner, Jason Verrett. Alex Smith had a nice day against them. Kareem Hunt had a nice day against them. And I look for them to create opportunities defensively to pressure Phillip Rivers. We seen what he did last week. He had a horrible game against the Chiefs. And I just like Alshon Jeffrey in that matchup. I like Wentz. I like whatever running back they put back there, whether it's Corey Clement or Smallwood. I like Ertz. Also, Arizona against San Francisco. I know Carson Palmer doesn't have offensive protection from his O-line, but when he has time, Fitzgerald is the man. I mean, to me, they have no running game, so it's all about the pass game. So that means, Jerron Brown, J.J. Nelson, Larry Fitzgerald, and a nice spot. Jared Goff went off against the 49ers defense, so I see no reason that, Carson Palmer shouldn't have a decent game. Nobody's going to say he's going to go out there and go for 350 and 3 or 4 scores, but a nice game, approaching maybe 300 yards, maybe 2 touchdowns, That's probably what I would expect in that situation against the 49ers defense. And I guess if you want to go with Jacksonville's defense, I'm not saying that they're, right now they're the 2000 Ravens, but and a matchup against the Jets, it should be fairly easy for them to, get turnovers and get stops and get sacks, So those are who I'm looking at. Those are the teams I'm looking at this week.
All right. Yeah, I'm definitely on the Jags train this week, and I'll probably try to fit them in, fit their defense in as many lineups as I can. But I'm also liking the rookie running backs this week. You mentioned Mixon. He is under 6K on FanDuel. So again, I already have a lineup that I'm playing around with where I have Taylor, Fournette, another rookie running back who, I mean, this guy's Adrian Peterson reincarnated. I mean, he's a monster. I mean, he was a monster at LSU, so I didn't expect anything, different with him here. But I like both of those running backs. As you mentioned, AJ Green. But what I'm going to do is I'm throwing Beckham in my lineup. But you did make me think about something. Larry Fitzgerald. First 2 games, he didn't look like himself, or maybe he did look like his old self. But this past week, man, it was the old Fitz. Catching a ton of passes from Palmer. I know that John Brown is practicing, or returned to practice rather. But I don't. Again, this is Fitz's team, and this is most likely going to be his last year as well as Palmer's last year. So I'm sure that they're going to want to make sure that they have a good connection. And again, like you said, they're playing against the 49ers. So I like the Fitz play as well. And then for kicker, Ryan's Ryan, I think it's Ryan Sucker, if I'm not mistaken.
From the Titans, yeah, Sucker, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the he's like one of the top fantasy kickers right now as far as points are concerned. So I've got him in my lineup. They're going against Houston, which again, surprisingly, their defense hasn't been playing that well. But I think in that kind of matchup, if the Titans, they're going to move the ball. So if they get to the point where, okay, bend but don't break defense, and they can't necessarily punch it in, they'll get a bunch of field goals. So I think he'll have another good weekend. For some reason, his price hasn't caught up with his production. He's still one of the cheapest kickers on FanDuel. So, those are the guys that we can collectively like. But did you want to add anything? Because I did have something else I wanted to discuss, but I wanted to, before we switch topics, I wanted to see if you wanted to add anything else to it.
So are we going to ride the Kareem Hunt wave for another week against the Redskins, or?
Absolutely. So listen. All right. So in fantasy draft, and again, my lineup in my head, still being worked. But in fantasy draft, it's 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex. So, like I said, I like the rookie running back. So I'm going to play Hunt, Fournette, Mixon, and then I'm going to throw in someone else. Not sure if I'm going to throw in Cook or not, and just go ahead and just go all 4 rookie running backs. But I'm definitely playing Hunt. Again, at this point, kind of told myself, hey, I'm not going to play him, or his price is getting high. His price is getting high, but again, he's putting up production, and again, he's not a one-dimensional back. So against a team like the Redskins, where we know they can give up rushing yards, but he'll also be able to catch 4 to 5 passes, and which could potentially be a high-scoring game. So yeah, I like Hunt again this week. Yeah, but what I wanted to, and again, I wanted to get your opinion, especially since you are a college basketball aficionado. Man, what's up with your boy Rick Pitino, man?
Listen, man. Listen. He's Teflon Rick, or he was at one point Teflon Rick, because if you could save your job despite having an extramarital affair and paying hush money and getting sued and clearing your name somewhat, and then you beat that rap and you still keep your job, and then you have strippers coming to the team dorm,
right,
and you place the blame on the assistant coach,
right,
and you say you have no knowledge of what's going on your basketball team, and they believe you, and you still keep your job, but you paid $100,000, 100 racks to a player who, first off, Louisville wasn't even in this kid's top 6. And he didn't even take an official visit to Louisville. He basically showed up on his own dime, looked around the school, probably got the money, and was like, all right, I'm going to come here. So it was no surprise that when this report finally came out, that now everybody just needed, they basically was like, oh, now it makes sense. No wonder this kid came to Louisville, considering the school wasn't even in his top 6, you know. He's from Michigan, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go to Louisville. And it was like, oh, wow, okay, that's interesting. That's like LeBron saying at one point in time, you know what? I think Morgan State is a wonderful institution for me to go to. And then I'm like, what? Like, I mean, it would be the equivalent. Just because it came out of nowhere. Like his recruitment, his decision to go to Louisville just came out of nowhere. So now it's justified, and it makes sense as to why he went there when this report came out. So Pitino has to go. And they placed him on indefinite leave, but more than likely he told his coaches, yeah, I'm not, I'm done. I'm done. And he has to go. But it's just hilarious how he beat the prior 2 issues, but this is the one that they got him on. And it wasn't the NCAA that got him. It was the FBI that got him.
Yeah, the alphabet boys, man. Tell you.
Man. And like the FBI, like the lead investigator said, I put it like this. He said, to all the schools out there, we know a lot, so you might as well call us before we call you. Yeah. And I think it's gonna rock college basketball. I really do. I really do. I mean, they got 6 schools and they got 4 assistant coaches as of now, but I think it'll be more.
Yeah, Chuck Person too, right? Didn't they get Chuck Person?
Yeah, they got the rifleman.
Yeah, man.
The rifleman. It's sad day, man. He faces 80 years if he doesn't cooperate.
Well, I'm sure
I'm telling you, it's bigger than the NCAA. Like the FBI basically told the NCAA, we show you how to do this, son. Like we're gonna show you how to do it. This is how you do an investigation. This is how you clean up college basketball. But for everybody to think that, you're naive to think that shoe companies and money don't run college basketball. Right. And this is the perfect example of it. Exactly. I can't wait for the 30 for 30. I can't.
Oh yeah.
Like the Pitino 30 for 30 is gonna be the scummiest, dirtiest, tragic, messiest 30 for 30 out, man. I can't wait. I can't wait for it.
I mean, this is. I mean, yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, and part of the reason why, like you said, Teflon Rick, is because he was Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky again was a basketball state, we know, but he took it to another level. I mean, look at what he did for the University of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And then for him to leave the University of Kentucky, resurface back in college basketball, same state, and then take Louisville.
Take the route.
Right. And again, I mean, and Louisville was considered like the stepchild, as far as in that state. And he took them and man, he did things for that organization that you didn't think wasn't going to happen. So, yeah, that's why he got a second and a third chance. But you're right, FBI, that's different.
This might actually be the first FBI report I'll read from beginning to end. Like,
yeah,
because I just think it's gonna be crazy to read how much money's been thrown around to player A, family B, coach C. It's gonna be incredible to read.
Right. I mean, well, look at it like this. We weren't student athletes. We were students, but you graduated from Coppin, I graduated from Towson. So let's just say, when many eons ago, when you were deciding what college you were going to go to, let's just say you got a letter in the mail from Essex Community College or from Bowie or Frostburg. And again, you hadn't even thought about those schools. You knew exactly where you were going to go. Mm-hmm. And you had your financial aid all set. And you get a letter in the mail and they say, hey, look, we're gonna give you $10,000 on top of what you're already getting to come to our school. And again, man, look, it could have been. Listen, in my case, when I was 17 years old, I could have got a letter from a culinary school. If they told me they were giving me an extra $10,000 or $15,000, I would be up in there cooking it up, man. I'm just saying, 17, 18 years old, yeah.
You take it.
Right.
I don't blame the kid.
Right.
Maybe the kid's family was trying to get more. I'm not sure.
Right.
But you get offered $100,000 to probably be a one and done. Man, you take it. You take it.
Right.
And I mean, I don't know if he'll be brought up on charges. I don't know if anybody in his family will be, but I mean, it happens in college sports. You get offered stuff, you take it. I mean, some people have willpower, they don't take it. But you got these kids and you don't know their backgrounds, you don't know their financial history, you don't know their family's financial history. But if you get offered some money, you take it.
Right.
You let them coaches deal with it later.
Right, exactly. I mean, and let's be honest, some of these kids, they're not going to a school like Kentucky, a school like Louisville for academics. I mean, come on. I mean, like you said, one and done. I mean, if they got rid of the, you could go back to college. I mean, you go straight to the NBA. I mean, the NCAA would be so watered down. This rule was put in place for it to be more competitive ball. I don't think it was put in place for the kids to get education. I think it was put in place for the NCAA to make more money.
Right.
So I mean, that's what's going to happen. That's just how it's going to be. But I do think this investigation, really put the hammer down on the NCAA. The crazy thing is that this is not new, like you said. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, and seeing, they did a story about Eric Barkley when he went to St. John's. He had like a Yukon or something, some big old truck. When okay, how'd you get it?
Right.
Like you said again, if someone's going to give you something again at that age, right, when you're already used to getting what you want,
right,
why wouldn't you take it? And it goes back to, we say, okay, well, let's pay student athletes. Now we know there's stipends and there's financial aid that they get, but realistically, I don't think you could create a payroll system or however you want to disperse where student athletes will get paid fairly, because there's no way in the world you can have a guy like whoever, a player one level player getting paid the same price,
right,
that someone on a swim team is getting paid. You have to look at the revenue that's being brought in. So I do think that maybe they should get at another look, and maybe that can help with the problem. But again, I don't think they really want to solve that problem. And then Rick Pitino was just a scapegoat, and the other organization was just a scapegoat with that. So again, just wanted to touch on that. Any last remarks?
Nah, man, just good luck to everybody picking their teams this week. Good luck to your DFS rosters. Good luck to your season-long rosters. Good luck to your pick'ems. Good luck to, the people that go up to Delaware. Good luck to Vegas, all that good stuff.
My man, all right. Again, this is Don't Believe the Hype. I'm Maurice.
And I'm up.